Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Night Scared. Now I know a lot of you use these videos to sleep. So before you drift off, I thought it would be a fun idea if everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world. Also like and subscribe if you are enjoying the case, right? Let's get comfy and relax. And let's begin story 1. The case took place in a large town in Sinoan County located in the southern part of Hub Province's Anji Autonomous Prefecture on the afternoon of October 26, 2010. The Sinoan County Police Command Center suddenly received an emergency call. The caller was a middle-aged man named Leon Shijuan. According to Zhejuan's statement, he suspected his house had been broken into and his wife had mysteriously disappeared about 30 minutes. After receiving the report, Sinoan County Police quickly arrived at the scene. Zhan's residence was located at Building 1 Yena Road in the Old Planning Commission residential area of Sinoan County. It was an ordinary 3-bedroom apartment. According to Zhan's statement, before the incident, he had gone to the Unicity area and didn't return home until the following afternoon. When he first entered, he didn't notice anything unusual, as the lights and TV in the living room were still on. But when he went into the master bedroom, Zhan found the room in chaos. Clothes were scattered on the bed, and the drawers of the dressing table and bedside cabinet were all open. Zhejuan said he tried to call his wife Zhang Shui, but discovered her phone was turned off and couldn't be reached. Faced with this strange situation, Zhejuan had no choice but to call the police. At the chaotic scene, investigators began their examination. They discovered a horrifying sight in the closed wardrobe in the master bedroom. Among the colorful clothes, they found a barefoot, wearing jeans in a curled-up position. The police felt a chill run down their spines. After pushing aside the clothes, they found a female body with closed eyes, a pale face, and no signs of life. Shui. The police heard screaming in their ears as Zhejuan suddenly ran to the wardrobe, sobbing. The woman's body in the closet turned out to be his missing wife Zhang Shuan. Due to the homicide, technical officers and forensic experts in charge of examining evidence also arrived at the scene. Through initial examination, forensic experts found that the victim showing was fully clothed with no signs of sexual assault. However, there was a wound on the back of her head caused by a hard object, suggesting that the perpetrator might have suddenly attacked Shuni from behind. Additionally, there was a clear strangulation mark on the victim's neck. Therefore, forensic experts speculated that she had been strangled to death with a rope or similar object, resulting in death by asphyxiation. However, at the crime scene, technical officers couldn't find any suspicious murder weapons. The only thing they found was a blood-stained cloth hidden in the bedroom wardrobe. Technical officers speculated that this cloth was likely used by the perpetrator to clean up the crime scene, although they collected many fingerprints in the room. Subsequent analysis revealed that these fingerprints belonged to the victim, Xuan, and her husband Suin. These signs suggested that the perpetrator might have worn gloves and deliberately erased some criminal traces at the scene after the murder. Due to the numerous signs of ransacking, investigators initially suspected this might be a burglary followed by the elimination of witnesses. However, subsequent examination results showed this was a very illogical burglary scene, although the belongings in the master bedroom were thoroughly ransacked. Strangely, most of the gold and silver jewelry in the bedside cabinet and the cash in the wallet remained intact, untaken. The perpetrator seemed to be looking for something more important. Through Zhan's careful comparison, only 3 items were missing from the scene. These were a wedding ring, a pair of earrings, and Shun's mobile phone. The total value of these items was less than 5,000 yuan, about $700. This strange situation naturally made the police very suspicious. If the perpetrator was a thief, why would they leave behind expensive gold and silver jewelry and cash, only taking a phone and a few pieces of the victim's jewelry? Was it because they panicked during the crime and forgot their original purpose? But if so, why could the perpetrators still calmly clean up the scene without leaving any fingerprints or clues to find clues? Technical officers also carefully examined the doors and windows at the scene. The result was that all doors were intact with no signs of forced entry. Even the cobwebs and dirt on the outer wall and drainage pipes were undamaged. Even the dust on the window sills remained intact with no traces or white marks. These details showed that they didn't enter the scene by climbing or breaking and combining all these clues. The police had an initial profile of the perpetrator. First, the perpetrator might have entered the scene easily, likely someone known to the victim or someone she didn't guard against. Second, the perpetrator had strong anti-invasive investigation into Shu's social relationships. As a result, they quickly discovered several very strange situations after the incident. Shu's body was quickly taken to Sinoan County Police for more detailed examination. News of her murder at home gradually spread throughout the area. With her beautiful face and natural singing talent, Shan was considered a renowned folk singer in the Ani Autonomous Prefecture. She often appeared performing on local media, therefore local people were very curious about SH's mysterious death, but no one knew what she had gone through on the night of the incident. Regarding his wife's sudden death, Zhejuan also seemed very surprised. According to his statement, on the evening of the incident he had called Xuan, and everything was normal. Then she was alone at home watching TV, while embroidering cloth shoes. Through examination, the forensic doctor determined the time of death to be between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. on the night of the incident. However, this precise time frame made the Sinon police feel very strange, because if the perpetrator was an intruder with the purpose of theft, they would surely choose midnight to act, not when the homeowner wasn't yet sound asleep. In other words, the female singer sure might have been killed out of hatred or love affairs. However, regarding this bold speculation, Shun's mother, China Youngfong, disagreed. According to Mrs. Chun, her daughter was very gentle and had never had conflicts or grudges with anyone. Although Shu had a previous marriage, she had divorced peacefully with her ex-husband without any emotional conflicts. Through subsequent investigation and interrogation, the police learned that Shun's mother, Mrs. Chun, also had complex social relationships in Hub Province's Ani Autonomous Prefecture. She was a highly skilled Tuya ethnic embroidery artisan and a representative of Hub Province's intangible cultural heritage. Usually Mrs. Chun ran a Tuja embroidery workshop, and Sh Andy often came to help at the workshop. She was the successor her mother carefully trained, but Mrs. Chin could never have imagined that her beloved daughter would be suddenly murdered at home. As the investigation deepened, police conducted a comprehensive investigation into Xuan and Xian's social relationships. All those possibly related to the case were interrogated and checked in turn. However, these relatives and friends all provided alibis for themselves. On the afternoon of the second day after the incident, the investigation had reached a deadlock, and at this moment the police suddenly came up with a bold investigative direction. They discovered that as the victim's husband Zijuan appeared too calm during the investigation, he didn't seem like someone who had just suffered the pain of losing his wife. Based on this suspicion, the investigators first met with Mrs. Chun and asked about her son-in-law Zan's daily behavior. As a result, Mrs. Chin once again strongly disagreed with the police's suspicion. According to her account, around May 2009, Sh Andy had met Zijuan shortly after that they got married, and her impression Zan was a caring, filial, and considerate son-in-law. Whenever Shui felt unwell, he would always put aside his work and return home to take care of her attentively. Although in the eyes of outsiders the marital relationship between Zijuan and Shuni was very harmonious, the police still felt there was something strange about Zan's behavior. After the incident, to not miss any possibilities, the police decided to investigate his specific whereabouts before and after the incident. According to Zijuan's statement, on October 25th, before the incident, he went alone to the central hospital in the Ani City area for a medical examination and didn't return home to Sinon County until the afternoon of October 26th. To verify ZJ's statement, the police later went to the Ani City area to collect surveillance footage and relevant witness statements. According to a street surveillance camera in the Ani City area, at 7:02 p.m. on the night of the incident, Zijuan was walking on a local street. Additionally, investigators found a local hotel employee. According to this employee's statement, around 10 p.m. on the night of the incident, Zijuan was indeed in the hotel and had talked with him. The distance from the Ani City area to the crime scene in Sinon County was about 62 miles. Even calculating at 62 miles per hour, it would take more than an hour to travel from the Ani City area to Sinon County. In other words, Zijuan would hardly have had enough time to travel between the two locations to commit the crime. After the suspicion about Zijuan was eliminated, the police investigation once again reached a deadlock. At this point, they hadn't yet realized that the breakthrough to expose the whole truth of the case was quietly lying in an inconspicuous corner of the scene. 3 days had passed since the incident. Zijuan and Mrs. Chin came to the police station almost every day to ask about the progress of the investigation. Along with the local people's buzzing discussions, the police were under great pressure to solve the case. To find a breakthrough, the then Deputy Chief of Senan County Police, Zhang Rongjong, decided to return to the scene with 2 technical officers for a second examination. After the incident, the victim's room had been completely sealed off by the police. The entire scene still maintained its initial state after the crime was reported, although the perpetrator had carefully cleaned up the scene. This time, Rome Zhang and his colleagues still collected an incomplete shoe print in an inconspicuous corner of the living room. Through measurements, technical officers discovered this shoe print came from a size 6 US shoe. This discovery made them very excited, because the shoes Zun and wore when entering the scene were size 8. 5 US. In other words, this size 6 shoe print wasn't left by Zhejuan. Based on previous profiles of the perpetrator, the police decided to once again summon all acquaintances around Xuan and Zhejuan for trace analysis. In comparison, this included SH's ex-husband Xian's ex-wife, and several relative and friends from both sides, totaling more than 20 key suspects. However, after comparison, all these people were eliminated because their shoe sizes were all larger than size 6, although such extensive screening didn't bring any breakthrough clues. The police still firmly believe that this incomplete shoe print must still contain some undiscovered clues. Therefore, Rongjiang specially invited a footprint expert from the Hub Provincial Police Department, Mang Shan, to help analyze the clues. Shan carefully observed this size 6 shoe print and quickly discovered something unusual. Shan explained to the task force members that in this shoe print the toe, front, shoulder, and heel all had clear pressure marks, but the arch was in an empty state with no pressure marks. This situation showed that the person who left the shoe print must have been wearing shoes too small for their feet. In other words, the shoe size that the perpetrator usually wore must be larger than size 6. Shan believed the perpetrator's actual shoe size must be around size 8's, age above 35, height between 5 feet 5 inches in and 5 feet 7 inches in, weight between 143 and 154 pounds, with a medium, slightly thin build. The perpetrator, deliberately wearing small shoes to disguise footprints, showed they had some understanding of Chinese police criminal investigation methods. But what they didn't know was that Chinese police had reached a high level in examining and analyzing traces and footprints. Moreover, afterward Shan went to the scene and sprinkled powder on the floors of the rooms. Although the perpetrator had used cloth to wipe before, some remaining blood stains and footprints on the floor gradually appeared. Based on these hidden footprints, technical officers quickly restored the perpetrator's general movement route in the room. The place with the most hidden footprints was the living room of the scene. This showed that the perpetrator had carried out the killing here. Afterward, they had moved the body into the master bedroom and hidden it in the wardrobe. Additionally, bloody footprints also appeared in the dining room and adjacent bathroom. From this, technical officers deduced they had gone to the bathroom to get a cloth for wiping and then proceeded to clean up the scene. From these movement routes, it could be seen that the perpetrator was extremely calm. However, Shan was still confident in promising the police that as long as they found all suspicious persons, he could identify the perpetrator within 2 hours. Therefore, the police again summoned more than suspects who had been screened before, had them were size 6 shoes, and took their footprints. However, after Shang compared them one by one, the footprints of all suspects didn't match in terms of pressure points and shape. Could the police have missed any other relatives or friends? Time passed to October 31st, 2010. 7 days after the incident, they decided to return to the scene for the third time. At the scene, Rongjiang and his colleagues accidentally saw Xuan and Xian's wedding photos. These photos made them think of something called a gift money register. The so-called gift money register is when two people get married. Those who attend the wedding record the amount of money they give as gifts in a register. In other words, in Xuan and Xian's gift money register, there must still be records of many relatives and friends' names, and the real perpetrator might be hidden among them. Following this investigative direction, investigators quickly found Xu and Zan's gift money register. However, they discovered a very strange situation. In this register, a corner of one page had been torn off. Based on the size and arrangement of characters on the page, the torn off part must have contained about 5 to 6 names. To clarify exactly what these names were, the police again found Zhejuan to assist in the investigation. However, due to the large number of wedding attendees, Zhejuan couldn't remember at that time, and at this moment Rongjiang and his colleagues thought of something else. Usually before holding a wedding, people would make a list of relatives and friends to invite, although this invitation list didn't necessarily have to completely match the later gift money register. The initial draft might contain more names. Therefore, the police immediately acted and found an original draft of the gift money register in a paper box at the scene. Through careful comparison, Sinon police discovered that 7 people appeared in this original draft but weren't recorded in the official gift money register. After screening each person afterward, finally only one suspicious subject remained, named Luzin. Although the original draft still recorded his phone number, this phone number could no longer be contacted. This mysterious situation increased the police's suspicion. But who is Luzin? The police asked relatives of both Shunny and Shijuan, and all said they didn't know him. Next, the police searched for the name Luzin in the population information system, but strangely there were no registration records of him in the local population information. Based on previous case solving, experienced investigators began using some homophonic and similar sounding words to search more broadly. As a result, they luckily found a middle-aged man named Luzin. However, relatives of Zhang Zani and Ling Ziyu still claimed they didn't know Luzin. Through subsequent investigation, they learned that Lushan was 32 years old and was originally a folk artist. Usually he mainly did performances like lion dancing and dragon dancing, but later, due to business failure, he had no stable income and owed several thousand. 2 days later, police went to Han's residence and found he wasn't home, but on the floor they still collected some shoe prints. Through subsequent analysis and comparison, technical officers were surprised to discover that among them were 2 shoe prints that completely matched the size 6 shoe prints left at the crime scene. This unexpected clue came too suddenly. The police basically determined that Hushan was highly suspicious of commit the crime, although his motive for the crime was still a mystery. After many efforts to search, the police finally got clues about Han's hiding place from a mahjong parlor. About 5 days ago, he had moved into a relatively remote rented room on the outskirts of a town in Sinon County. To avoid alerting the suspect, police decided to implement a secret arrest operation. First, they organized a tight surveillance around the boarding house, then sent 6 plainclothes officers to secretly enter the room where Hushan was staying. In less than 30 seconds, the plainclothes officers subdued and handcuffed him. However, the interrogation after the arrest didn't go smoothly. Faced with police questions, Han first remained silent for a full day and night, then refused to admit any connection to Shu's death. The interrogation officer had to present the footprint evidence comparison. At this point, Luzin finally spoke up and posed a thought-provoking question, and this question directly exposed an extremely carefully concealed conspiracy in the interrogation room. The suspect Han's first words made the investigators feel somewhat puzzled. He asked if someone uses a knife to harm another person, who bears the greater guilt, the person or the knife? Initially, the police felt Hushan seemed to be asking a meaningless question, but after careful consideration, the interrogation officer suddenly realized that Hushan was implying that he was merely a knife, and behind him was a mastermind who borrowed the knife to kill. After multiple interrogations, he finally admitted to the crime and revealed the mastermind who directed him to commit the murder, and this mastermind was none other than Ling Shijuan, the victim's husband. According to Han's confession, he and Zhejuan were former colleagues. Later, they had also done business together. Although the business failed, they maintained close contact. Afterward, Hushan stated that Zhejuan had instigated him to kill his wife Xuan to collect a large insurance payout, and under Zhan's meticulous plan, this murder scheme for insurance fraud had attempted 4 times, only succeeding on the attempt. On December 28, 2010, police arrested suspect Ling Xian. However, when faced with irrefutable evidence, Ling Shijuan uttered a shocking statement: "Whoever marries me, I would kill them." It turned out that the marriage between Zhejuan and Xuan had been a carefully designed trap from the beginning. According to Xian's confession, he was originally a worker at Sinfang Tobacco Factory, then switched to working as a driver for his brother-in-law's mining company, earning over 3,000 yuan, about $440 per month. However, whether it was the stable job at the tobacco factory or the daily hard work of driving these laborious jobs made him feel dissatisfied. He desperately wanted to escape ordinary life, always dreaming of becoming rich overnight to live a luxurious life. But the path to wealth seemed to always be unlucky for him, until one chance occasion. Zhejuan said he had watched a Western movie about insurance fraud by killing chickens. Afterward, the unfulfilled dream of wealth in his heart seemed to suddenly be ignited. After some thought, he conceived a cruel scheme. He decided to apply the method from the movie to his wife. At that time, Zun was still not divorced from his ex-wife's son. Muching to implement the plan, he first found multiple insurance policies for Muching and created opportunities for her to sign insurance applications, but unexpected Ly Muching refused and told him, "Our family is already so poor, we don't have enough money to spend. Why do we need to buy so much insurance?" At this point, Zhejuan feared the insurance fraud plan would be exposed, so he temporarily suspended the plan. Not long after, he proposed divorce to Muching. However, after the divorce, Zhejuan still didn't give up his path to wealth. He continued to look for his next target. Due to work, he later became acquainted with Zhang Yongzhen, the director of the Senan County branch of ENI Transport Company, and Zhang Yongjin was Zhang's son's father. At that time, Suni was already divorced after her first failed marriage, She had returned home to Senan County from Guangdong City in Guangdong Province under the matchmaking of Mr. Zhang Yongjin Zijuan, who appeared honest and simple on the outside, very naturally got to know the beautiful singer Zhang. Suni in Xian's eyes, Suni had grown up in a well-off family, had a rather naive personality, and didn't guard against others. Without doubt this was a rare target with Mr. Zhang Yongjin's help. He quickly won Suni's heart. As for the plan to kill his wife for insurance money, he still never gave up even before marriage. On July 15, 2009, Zan had bought Suni her first personal accident insurance policy with a maximum coverage of 240,000 yuan, about $5,300. But at this time Suni was immersed in passionate love and had no suspicion about his evil scheme until October 1st, 2009. 41-year-old Ling Shijuan and 29-year-old Zhang Suni, officially married less than 3 months after marriage. Zijuan continued to push forward with his plan. On December 15, 2009, he bought a second insurance policy for Suni, and this time the maximum coverage was 500,000 yuan, about $73,500. Not long after, he persuaded his wife to buy a third personal accident insurance policy with a maximum coverage of 320,000 yuan, about $47,000. At this point, the total death benefit from Sun's 3 insurance policies had reached 160,000 yuan, about $155,800, and of course the beneficiary of all these insurance payouts was Lian Xian. After everything was prepared, he began implementing the second part of the plan, which was borrowing a knife to kill. First, he approached his former colleague Lu Fuchan and revealed the entire plan to kill his wife for insurance money. Initially, Fusan showed hesitation at Zan's proposal, thinking the plan was too risky and dangerous. However, when Zijuan offered a payment of 60,000 yuan, about $8,800, Fusan, who was drowning in debt, began to waver. Seeing Fusan still hesitating, Zan decided to increase the temptation. He promised that once he received the insurance money, Fusan would receive 100,000 yuan, about $14,700 in payment. When hearing this huge sum of money, the previously hesitant Fuchan immediately agreed. Thus this dirty exchange was established. After the Chinese New Year in 2010, the two decided to act. Zijuan secretly directed Fusan to monitor Suni and choose an appropriate time to strike to avoid suspicion. He specifically requested leave from his unit for 2 days and lied about going to Chongqing City for medical treatment. However, during the surveillance, Sunny happened to go out with friends, so Fusan couldn't find a suitable opportunity to strike. After this first failed attempt, Zijuan realized that if they wanted to execute the plan, they needed to think of a more discreet method. By May 2010, Zijuan took advantage of his job as a driver at the mining company to secretly bring home some explosives and detonators. This time, he decided to use a detonation device to create a fire, disguising it as a sudden accident to achieve the purpose of destroying the body. According to Zan's confession, he had secretly hidden explosives behind the gas tank in the kitchen, then placed detonators beside it. Finally, he placed a mosquito coil next to the detonators. The plan was to secretly light the mosquito coil, and its spark would ignite the detonator, finally causing the explosives and gas tank to explode, creating an explosion that would appear to be caused by improper gas use. After preparing everything, Zijuan once again took sick leave and left Senan County. Meanwhile, Fusan took Ling Xian's house keys and secretly broke into the apartment. He hid behind the living room curtains, quietly waiting for Suni to return home. According to Fan's account, he planned to wait until Suni went to shower, then light the mosquito coil and quietly leave. Unfortunately, that evening, due to working overtime, Sunny didn't return home until 2 a.m. Waiting for too long made Lu Fusan completely lose patience, and without waiting for Suni to fall asleep, he hastily went to the kitchen to light the mosquito coil. However, he unexpectedly made too much noise and caught Sun's attention. She thought there was a thief and quickly called Zijuan. At this point, Zijuan knew the plan was about to be exposed, so he immediately comforted Suni to stay in the master bedroom, lock the door, and not come out. Then he notified Fusan to quickly retreat. The meticulous plan failed again, and Zijuan could only wait for the next suitable opportunity, but he worried Suni would discover the detonation device in the kitchen, so he decided to abandon this action plan and secretly remove the explosives and detonators. Not long after, Zijuan thought of an easier murder plan. He wanted Fusan to secretly break into his house, first kill his wife Suni with a weapon, then stage the scene as a burglary, followed by witness elimination. This way, local police would view it as a theft murder case. As long as Fuchan cleaned the scene thoroughly, the police wouldn't be able To investigate them therefore on August 13th, 2010, Zhejuan, while away, once again directed Fushan to act around 1 a.m. That day Fushan took Xian's house keys, intending to quietly open the door, but unexpectedly the vigilant Suni had locked the door from inside. The third attempt ended in failure. Time passed to October 2010, seeing that the 3 insurance policies he had bought for Suni were about to expire, and the chance to receive the huge compensation was about to slip away. Zhejuan became increasingly anxious after 3 previous failed attempts. Zhejuan realized that having El Fusion secretly break and was no longer feasible, so he changed the plan this time, deciding to let Fusan enter his house openly on October 25th, 2010. Zhejuan once again used the excuse of going for medical treatment, traveling alone to the E-City area to create an alibi for the time. Before leaving, he specifically instructed his wife, "Tonight a friend will come to pick up a bank card. I've left it in the drawer under the coffee table in the living room. Just give it to him." At this point, Shni didn't think much of it, completely trusting her husband's arrangement, and this seemingly normal arrangement would create a perfect opportunity for Fusan to strike. Additionally, Zhejuan told Lu Fusan to definitely wear large size shoes, saying this could mislead the police investigation. However, when preparing the shoes, Lu Fusan found that large shoes were easy to slip off, so he had to choose a pair of small shoes that didn't fit. Around 9 p.m. that night, Fushan wore a backpack, prepared to go to Shun's house. In the backpack, he had prepared an iron hammer and rope. Following Xian's instructions, Lu Fusan skillfully avoided the surveillance cameras around and arrived at Shin's house to ring the doorbell. After entering, Shunny welcomed Fushan warmly, without any suspicion, but just as she bent down to get the bank card, Fusan quickly pulled out the iron hammer, striking hard at the back of her head. After a loud noise, Shinny fell to the ground. Before she could react at this point, Fusan took out the rope to finish off Shunny. The frenzied murder happened so quickly and unexpectedly that poor Jiang Shunny, until her final moment, never knew that all of this was a long-planned conspiracy by the husband she trusted. After interrogation, Fushan pointed out the location where he disposed of the murder weapons, and the police successfully found the hammer on September 23, 2011. The ENI Autonomous Prefecture Intermediate People's Court issued its first instance verdict. Defendant Ling Zun was sentenced to death for the crime of intentional homicide. Defendant Lu Fusan was sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve for the crime of intentional homicide. Next, we'll explore a case that occurred on Jimodo Island in Yosa City, Home Province, South Korea. The main characters are a remarried couple. The husband, Par 50, worked as an insurance consultant. His wife, Kim Swan 47, was a restaurant server. The couple lived in downtown Yesu. One day in 2018, they drove to Ju Village on Jimodo Island for a trip when tragedy struck at 10:56 p.m. On Monday, December 31st, the Yesu 119 Safety Center received a desperate emergency call. On the other end was a woman's panicked voice screaming, "Help me, I can't open the door or windows, it's too dark, I can't see anything, the car is sinking, it's sinking." The dispatcher urgently asked for the woman's location, but she was clearly too panicked to hear the operator's questions, only repeatedly asking what to do. The call lasted about 4 minutes before the woman stopped speaking. After that, the sound of gurgling water could be heard. Before the call disconnected, the dispatcher realized the situation was dire and quickly traced the call location through the phone signal. They quickly determined the call came from a near Ju village in central Jimodo Island. The rescue team immediately departed for the scene. When they arrived, the scene was crowded with curious locals, buzzing with conversation. A man sat crying desperately on the dock. It was Tun. Seeing the rescue team, Tun grabbed onto them like a lifeline, saying in air voice, "Please save my wife. She fell into the sea." Swan, Tun's wife. She fell into the sea. Swan, Tun's wife, was 47 years old, born into an ordinary family in Yosa City with several siblings. She left school early to work and met her first husband through friends' introductions from her first marriage. She had a son and daughter, both living with her. Suyen was working at a restaurant in Yesu, and it was here that she happened to meet Tun, a single father 3 years her senior. Their conversations seemed endless, and they gradually developed feelings for each other. On December 6, 2018, Suyen divorced her first husband, but just 4 days later, she registered her marriage with Taeyun. After holding a simple wedding, they began their new life together. Initially, everything was developing positively, but unexpectedly, less than a month after marriage, Swan met with disaster at the dock. Tun sobbed, describing Swan as a gentle woman who always cared for him. They had worked hard to build their new home together, never expecting such a tragic accident. The rescue workers patiently consoled Tun, though they knew that with the time that had passed, his wife's chances of survival were very sl. Lim Tun explained that he and his wife had only been married a short time, and were still in their honeymoon period. That afternoon, the last day of 2018, his wife had suggested going to Jimoto Island to watch the first sunrise of the new year. So the couple drove from downtown to Jimoto Island. They visited Ichuen-do and Wak-do for sightseeing, then moved on to Jipu village. Instead of booking a hotel, they decided to drive to the dock near the village and sleep in the car while waiting for the New Year's sunrise by 10 p.m. Swan was sleeping in the passenger seat. Tun wasn't sleepy, so he went out to smoke. During that time, he checked if the tires had enough air. When he reached the right rear tire, for some unknown reason the car suddenly began slowly sliding forward. He realized something was wrong and quickly tried to grab the door handle, but it was futile. It turned out their parking spot wasn't level with a slope nearby, and soon the car had slid to the sloped area. He rushed to the passenger side, trying to open the door to wake his deeply sleeping wife, but found the doors were locked and couldn't be opened. At this point, Tun was banging on the car window and calling Sue's name, but his wife couldn't hear him at all. Thus, he was forced to watch helplessly as his wife and the car slid into the sea. In that moment of panic, he completely froze, not knowing what to do. The car slowly sank, each moment passing like a nightmare that he could see clearly. He stood on the dock screaming desperately, hoping his shouts might wake Swan and she would find a way to escape. When he heard faint cries for help coming from the sinking car, he jumped into the sea to save his wife, but because he couldn't swim, and with the pitch-black night making it impossible to see the water's surface, after several failed attempts, he had to return to the dock in despair. Tun tried to call for help, but realized his phone was left in the car. He stood on the dock shouting loudly, hoping someone nearby would hear, but it was already past 10 p.m. and there was no one around the dock. With no choice, he had to run toward the village for help, finally running into a guest house to seek assistance with the guest house owners. Help, he called the 119 rescue team. When he returned to the dock, the car had completely disappeared beneath the dark water with no trace of his wife. Realizing nothing could be done, he collapsed onto the dock, sobbing in desperation. The bad news spread quickly and villagers began gathering. However, on that pitch-black night, no one dared risk going into the sea for a rescue. Everyone stood helplessly waiting for professional rescue workers to arrive. As soon as the rescue team arrived at the scene, they discovered several suspicious details. First, the protective railings on both sides of the dock were very sturdy, but one section was severely deformed, as if it had taken a strong impact. A fisherman working there confirmed the railing had been intact before. Even more suspiciously, although Tun claimed he had jumped into the sea trying to save his wife, his clothes were strangely dry. From these irregularities, the rescue workers formed a bold hypothesis. They suspected this wasn't simply an accidental tragedy, but possibly a carefully orchestrated plan by Taeyun. They immediately notified the police. Receiving the report, police quickly arrived at the scene. When Taeyun saw the police appear, he showed momentary surprise, but quickly regained composure and declared his willingness to cooperate with the investigation. Faced with police questioning, Tun firmly maintained his initial statement, insisting his wife's accident was unintentional. When asked about the deformed dock railing, Tun claimed no knowledge of this, suggesting it may have been damaged before they arrived. Later, police visited the guest house, where he had called for help to investigate. The guest house owner's testimony raised more suspicions. According to the owner, when Tun appeared to ask for help calling rescue services, his demeanor was extremely calm, showing no signs of panic or worry. He even casually walked around the guest house, appearing no different from a normal guest, aside from requesting to use the phone. This behavior made police increasingly suspicious. It was hard to understand how someone witnessing their spouse in life-threatening danger could maintain such unusual composure. This clearly wasn't the natural reaction of a husband in that situation. When confronted, Tun defended himself, saying his wandering around the guest house was to look for any rescue equipment that might be useful. He insisted he was actually very panicked, but tried to suppress showing it externally. In such an emergency situation, I had to stay calm, otherwise who could my wife rely on? Tun explained. However, these justifications failed to convince the police. To uncover the truth, they decided to check surveillance camera footage from the dock. Unfortunately, the cameras didn't capture the car sliding into the sea, nor the moment Tun allegedly jumped in to save his wife. The only thing captured was Tun walking alone toward the guest house at 10:57 p.m. that night. Through the surveillance footage, police saw him leisurely walking toward the village, completely unhurried, his clothes appearing dry, as if deliberately taking his time, purposely not wanting rescue teams to arrive too quickly. Regarding this, Tun explained that he had never been to Jimoto Island before, wasn't familiar with the terrain, and additionally it was dark, and he couldn't see the road clearly, which is why he walked so slowly during the investigation into the suspect's background. Police learned that Tun, aged 50, working as an insurance consultant, had a failed previous marriage. From this marriage, he had 3 daughters. Initially, the family lived a modest but peaceful life. However, gradually his ex-wife began feeling dissatisfied with his earning capacity, frequently complaining that he couldn't provide a better life for her, and their children. Financial conflicts became increasingly intense, leading to endless arguments. Finally, the marriage ended, and the 3 daughters lived with Tun, wanting to provide a better life for his children. Tun constantly changed jobs from server to salesperson. However, in December 2012, desperate, with debt reaching $80 million, approximately $61,500, he and a friend committed a robbery of $52 million, approximately $440,000 in Yisu, and were quickly arrested by police. When arrested, Tayun confessed his crimes. Frankly, he explained that with 3 school-aged children, tuition fees were an unavoidable burden, and he only resorted to crime out of desperation. For the theft charge, he was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison in 2014. After completing his prison sentence, Tun survived on temporary jobs and driving tourist buses. In May 2018, he applied for an insurance consultant position, but was rejected due to his criminal record. Later, he applied for a similar position at another company, and was hired. After joining the company, Tun focused on learning the business through training programs, quickly mastering insurance product details and compensation clauses. Notably, he actively researched potential customer information and skillfully created chance meetings for approaching them. Through these efforts, he rapidly became proficient at his job and achieved impressive sales results. In late September 2018, Tun noticed Swan, a potential customer, on his insurance prospect list. Discovering she worked at a restaurant he frequently visited, he meticulously planned to accidentally meet and approach her under the guise of insurance consultation. Learning she was separated and preparing for divorce, Tun became increasingly active in maintaining contact, from travel opportunities to attractive insurance package offers. This strategy proved effective as they quickly developed romantic feelings for each other. On October 26th, under Tun's persuasion, Swan purchased a total of 3 insurance products, including 2 policies with coverage of $1 billion, approximately $770,000. On November 9th, he had her buy dental insurance, and on November 20th she purchased another policy worth $100 billion, approximately $77,000. At this point, being deeply in love, Suyin had no suspicions and continuously signed insurance contracts. Following Tun's sweet talk to create an impression of financial capability, he sold his old car to buy a used luxury car, the same fateful vehicle that would later sink into the sea. Not stopping there, Tun painted a beautiful future vision by promising to buy land on a beautiful island and build a house for their retirement together. Completely convinced by Tun's promises, just 4 days after finalizing her divorce, Swan hastily married him immediately afterward. From December 12th to 13th, Tayun began suspicious activities, first using Sue's name to buy damage insurance for his car, then changing the beneficiary in all her insurance contracts to his name. He even secretly transferred the beneficiary rights to his brother, without informing Swan. During the investigation, police questioned Suyan's 2 children about their stepfather. Her older son said his stepfather was very good, often taking care of him, treating him to fancy restaurants whenever he had free time, and taking him to interesting places. He quite liked his stepfather. After his mother remarried, she seemed much happier. Before the incident, his mother had been acting normally, with no strange behavior. Sue's younger daughter also said she had a good impression of her stepfather. Initially, she worried that after her mother remarried, she might pay less attention to her brother and herself, but that wasn't the case. Their stepfather was meticulous, sometimes even more attentive to her than her mother, despite Suyan's children portraying Tayun as a devoted stepfather. Police remained cautious. They believed the brief time since the marriage wasn't sufficient to evaluate Tun's true character. In further investigation, police discovered that after marriage, Tun had changed the beneficiary of 6 insurance policies. Swan had purchased to his name. The total coverage of these 6 contracts amounted to $1.25 billion, approximately $962,000, primarily related to death by accident, traffic accidents, and similar circumstances. Police believed this was Tun's motive. He had carefully planned this accident, aiming to collect this enormous insurance payout. As an insurance consultant, he understood every insurance clause in detail. After coincidentally meeting Swan, he had targeted her insurance policies He hadn't truly loved her, but pretended to pursue her, quickly marrying her after gaining her trust, and rushing to change the beneficiary names to his own after everything was prepared. He lured Swan to Jimoto Island to execute his sinister plan. Police also learned that Tun lived. Modestly had 3 daughters to support, faced significant life pressures, and struggled financially. Someone had seen him write a note in his phone titled "My Life Philosophy," which included the line, "I don't want to pass poverty down to my children." Although all clues pointed to Taeyun murdering his wife, he continued to deny it, instead accusing the police of making wild speculations, without concrete evidence, in their attempt to blame him. Subsequently, police questioned Tun's 3 daughters. They all stated that their father was an honest, upright person, although he had made mistakes in the past. These were due to life's pressures and didn't mean he was a bad person. Since their parents divorced, their father had shouldered all their living expenses. He was frugal with himself and had never mistreated them. By the afternoon following the incident, police had recovered the car from the seabed. It was a silver gray 2008 Genesis. Upon inspection, the front windshield was completely shattered, the rear had clear impact damage, and the trunk was open. Swan was found in the passenger seat, showing no signs of life. 2 phones were found in the car, one belonging to Swan and one to Tun, both unusable due to water damage. The forensic report showed Suyin died from drowning, with time of death around 11 p.m. on December 31st. After recovering the car, police quickly discovered suspicious points. According to Taeyun, the car should have slid into the waterfront first, so the broken windshield could be explained by water pressure or underwater rocks. But if the rear entered the water last, why was there impact damage, and why was the trunk open? Additionally, police found another suspicious detail in the car. The gear shifter was in neutral, and this was unusual. Tun had parked at the dock to wait for sunrise. Leaving the car in neutral would risk it rolling, unless that was intentional. During police questioning, Tun offered an explanation for the sequence of events. According to him, the car was initially parked at the dock's edge, as it was an ideal spot for watching the sunrise. However, his wife felt unsafe there and asked him to back up. During this backing up process, he accidentally hit the protective railing, causing its deformation. Afterward, he habitually left the car in neutral and got out to check the situation. At that moment, the car unexpectedly slid into the sea. As for the open trunk, he suggested it might have been forced open by water pressure as the car sank. However, this testimony revealed serious contradictions with his previous statements. Notably, in his first statement, he firmly claimed no knowledge of the damaged railing, but now admitted he had backed into it. This inconsistency in his testimony further increased suspicions about his role in the incident. Significantly, Taeyun had worked as a tourist bus driver, indicating his driving skills were excellent, and he would have known the danger of leaving a car in neutral. Such a basic error seemed unlikely from an experienced driver. Regarding this, Tun explained that he hadn't known an accident would happen to his wife. If he had, he would certainly have put the car in park. He said he hadn't thought much about it at the time, believing that getting out to check the car briefly would be fine. With the car in neutral, who could have known that one moment carelessness would lead to tragedy? He suggested strong sea winds combined with the slope might have caused the car to slide gradually. This explanation didn't reduce police suspicions. There was another suspicious detail about the car. One of the rear windows was open. Measurements showed a 2.75 in gap. If all the windows had been closed when the car fell into the sea, it wouldn't have sunk immediately. However, with an open window, water would quickly flood the passenger compartment, causing the car to sink rapidly. At the time Swan was in the passenger seat, if she had felt hot and wanted to open a window, she would likely have opened her own window. But when the car was recovered, the passenger window was tightly closed while the rear window was slightly open. This couldn't help but raise suspicions. Police suspected Taeyun had deliberately opened the rear window to make the car sink faster, but Taeyun expressed outrage at this speculation, saying the open rear window was his wife's idea. He claimed she had initially opened her passenger window because she felt hot, but later closed it due to strong winds, and asked him to open the rear window instead. This way, they could have some ventilation without too much cold air. Although Taeyun tried to deny his crime, by this point all evidence suggested San's death was not a simple accident. With a clear motive established, police arrested him on suspicion of intentional murder. According to the investigation results, on the night of the incident, Taeyun had parked the car on the dock slope, used poor air circulation as an excuse to open the rear window, and then had intimate relations with Swan in the car. Afterward, claiming discomfort, he backed up the car, saying they would go to a hotel. During this process, he deliberately hit the protective railing, then used the pretext of checking the damage to put the car in neutral without engaging the parking brake. He got out of the car alone for inspection, causing Swan and the vehicle to slide down the dock's ramp into the sea 1 year after the incident. The trial opened at the Sunshin branch of the Gwanga district. Court at trial, the prosecutor argued that defendant Park Tan, due to financial difficulties, particularly the pressure of supporting his daughters after divorce, had planned this incident. He murdered Swan, disguising it as an AC Yenti to fraudulently collect insurance money. On December 31st, 2018, Tan had lured the victim to Zhu Village dock on Gumdo Island under the pretense of watching the sunrise. He then deliberately backed into the dock's protective railing, shifted to neutral, and got out to check the situation. Subsequently, Tan pushed the car from behind, causing it to slide into the sea. The defense argued that while Tan did have debt problems and wasn't wealthy, his situation wasn't desperate enough to commit murder for money. Moreover, there was no evidence showing he had pushed the car after exiting it. They suggested the car might have accidentally slid into the sea. Due to strong winds, the prosecutor maintained that Tan's financial difficulties were his motive for the crime. Additionally, as an experienced driver leaving the car in neutral was clearly intentional. Opening a rear window in cold winter weather was highly unusual. Latest investigation results showed the defendant had visited the scene on December 24th, a week before the incident. This behavior raised further suspicions. The car couldn't have slid into the sea without external force, further proving the unnatural nature of the accident. After a period of trial, the court found defendant Tan guilty of intentional murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment. After the trial concluded, Tan, dissatisfied with the verdict, appealed to the Gwanga High Court. At the appellate court, defendant Tan declared his complete innocence, stating he had never wronged his wife and wouldn't scheme such an act for insurance money. Though he had financial difficulties, he wouldn't do something so crazy. The car's slide into the sea could have been caused by multiple factors, and it couldn't be proven that he had pushed it. According to the police simulation experiment at the scene of the situation of a car in end gear sliding into the sea, there are 3 cases. The first case is the car is parked on a flat surface. If it slides, it is because someone intentionally pushed the car. The second case is the car is parked on a slope, and as soon as the handbrake is released, it will slide. The last case is the car was originally parked on a flat surface, but the person in the passenger seat moved the position, causing the car to start sliding. Through these 3 simulations, it was shown that the critical point for the car to slide was not fixed. The appellate judge concluded that defendant Park Tan lacked sufficient financial motive to murder Sueon, and there were multiple possible scenarios for the car sliding into the sea. They couldn't definitively prove Tan had pushed the car. After deliberation, the court ruled that while Tan wasn't guilty of intentional murder, he was guilty of negligent homicide based on the Special Act on the Treatment of Traffic Accidents. The appeals court overturned Tan's life sentence and instead sentenced him to 3 years in prison. Still dissatisfied, Tan appealed to the South Korean Supreme Court. Ultimately, the Supreme Court overturned the appellate verdict and declared Tan not guilty. The justices argued that while a defendant could be convicted based on circumstantial evidence alone, such evidence must be without any reasonable doubt. The defendant hadn't been the primary decision maker about the entire Jimoto Island trip. The intimate relations in the car appeared to be at the victim's request rather than the defendant's initiative. Before the accident, the defendant's health wasn't good, showing signs of dizziness and wanting to go to a hotel to rest. There were indirect facts suggesting the accident was an intention. Therefore, the evidence presented by the prosecution didn't meet the required standard, leaving room for reasonable doubt. Additionally, there was no other evidence that could convict the defendant. After being freed, Tan immediately took the insurance contracts to the insurance company demanding compensation, but was denied. The insurance company believed Tan likely murdered Swan, arguing her death wasn't accidental and therefore refusing to pay. Subsequently, Tan sued the insurance company on December 12, 2022. The trial opened at the Seoul Central District Court. At trial, the defendant insurance company pointed out that although Tan had been found not guilty, his changing of beneficiary information in many of Su-Yan's insurance contracts was highly suspicious. Additionally, given the suspicious circumstances of San's death, they couldn't process the compensation. Plaintiff Tan argued that the insurance company was trying to avoid payment by using this as an excuse. He had been found not guilty in the previous drowning case, and the insurance company had no right to use that as grounds for denying compensation. After a period of trial, the court ruled in favor of the insurance company. Tan appealed. Finally, the appeals court reversed the decision, ruling against the insurance company and ordering them to pay all insurance benefits to Tan. A year later, Tan received the enormous insurance payout totaling $25 billion won approximately $962,000. Some believe Tan's purpose was clear from the beginning. He had meticulously planned everything from changing insurance beneficiaries to his wife's accident, calculating each step carefully. As an insurance consultant, he understood legal loopholes and ultimately succeeded in receiving the massive insurance payout as intended. During this process, he deliberately hit the protective railing, then used the pretext of checking the damage to put the car in neutral. Without engaging the party-pairing brake, he got out of the car alone for inspection, causing Swan and the vehicle to slide down the dock's ramp into the sea. 1 year after the incident, the trial opened at the Sunshin branch of the Gwanga District Court. At trial, the prosecutor argued that defendant Park Tan, due to financial difficulties, particularly the pressure of supporting his daughters after divorce, had planned this incident. He murdered Swan, disguising it as an accident to fraudulently collect insurance money. On December 3 SD 2018, Tan had lured the victim to Ju Village dock on Gumdo Island under the pretense of watching the sunrise. He then deliberately backed into the dock's protective railing, shifted to neutral, and got out to check the situation. Subsequently, Tan pushed the car from behind, causing it to slide into the sea. The defense argued that while Tan did have debt problems and wasn't wealthy, his situation wasn't desperate enough to commit murder for money. Moreover, there was no evidence showing he had pushed the car. After exiting it, they suggested the car might have accidentally slid into the sea due to strong winds. The prosecutor maintained that Tan's financial difficulties were his motive for the crime. Additionally, as an experienced driver, leaving the car in neutral was clearly intentional. Opening a rear window in cold winter weather was highly unusual. Latest investigation results showed the defendant had visited the scene on December 24, a week before the incident. This behavior raised further suspicions. The car couldn't have slid into the sea without external force, further proving the unnatural nature of the accident. After a period of trial, the court found defendant Tan guilty of intentional murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment. After the trial concluded, Tan, dissatisfied with the verdict, appealed to the Gwanga High Court. At the appellate court, defendant Tan declared his complete innocence, stating he had never wronged his wife and wouldn't scheme such an act for insurance money. Though he had financial difficulties, he wouldn't do something so crazy. The car's slide into the sea could have been caused by multiple factors, and it couldn't be proven that he had pushed it. According to the police simulation experiment at the scene of the situation of a car in end gear sliding into the sea, there are 3 cases. The first case is the car is parked on a flat surface. If it slides, it is because someone intentionally pushed the car. The second case is the car is parked on a slope, and as soon as the handbrake is released east, it will slide. The last case is the car was originally parked on a flat surface, but the person in the passenger seat moved the position, causing the car to start sliding. Through these 3 simulations, it was shown that the critical point for the car to slide was not fixed. The appellate judge concluded that defendant Park Tan lacked sufficient financial motive to murder Sueon, and there were multiple possible scenarios for the car sliding into the sea. They couldn't definitively prove Tan had pushed the car. After deliberation, the court ruled that while Tan wasn't guilty of intentional murder, he was guilty of negligent homicide based on the Special Act on the Treatment of Traffic Accidents. The appeals court overturned Tan's life sentence and instead sentenced him to 3 years in prison. Still dissatisfied, Tan appealed to the South Korean Supreme Court. Ultimately, the Supreme Court overturned the appellate verdict and declared Tan not guilty. The justices argued that while a defendant could be convicted based on circumstantial evidence alone, such evidence must be without any reasonable doubt. The defendant hadn't been the primary decision maker about the entire Jumoto Island trip. The intimate relations in the car appeared to be at the victim's request rather than the defendant's initiative. Before the accident, the defendant's health wasn't good, showing signs of dizziness and wanting to go to a hotel to rest. There were indirect facts suggesting the accident wasn't intentional. Therefore, the evidence presented by the prosecution didn't meet the required standard, leaving room for reasonable doubt. Additionally, there was no other evidence that could convict the defendant. After being freed, Tan immediately took the insurance contracts to the insurance company demanding compensation, but was denied. The insurance company believed Tan likely murdered Swan, arguing her death wasn't accidental, and therefore refusing to pay. Subsequently, Tan sued the insurance company on December 12, 2022. The trial opened at the Seoul Central District Court. At trial, the defendant insurance company pointed out that although Tan had been found not guilty, his changing of beneficiary information in many of Sue's insurance contracts was highly suspicious. Additionally, given the suspicious circumstances of San's death, They couldn't process the compensation. Plaintiff Tayan argued that the insurance company was trying to avoid payment by using this as an excuse. He had been found not guilty in the previous drowning case, and the insurance company had no right to use that as grounds for denying compensation. After a period of trial, the court ruled in favor of the insurance company. Tayan appealed. Finally, the appeals court reversed the decision, ruling against the insurance company and ordering them to pay all insurance benefits to Tayan. A year later, Tayan received the enormous insurance payout, totaling $1.25 billion, won approximately $962,000. Some believe Tayan's purpose was clear from the beginning. He had meticulously planned everything from changing insurance beneficiaries to his wife's accident, calculating each step carefully. As an insurance consultant, he understood legal loopholes and ultimately succeeded in receiving the massive insurance payout as intended. Others believed Tayan was innocent, arguing he alone couldn't have planned such a complex and sophisticated insurance fraud scheme. Perhaps everything was just a coincidence, and Tayan merely happened to become the final beneficiary. Convicting him might have been somewhat forced. Ultimately, the South Korean judiciary seemed to think so too. Story 2 will explore a case that occurred in Zilin City, Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region, which shocked China due to the killer's extraordinary intelligence and frightening talents. In this case, the victims were merely pawns in his twisted game. This tragic story began at 4:00 p.m. on January 2nd, 2024, when the Zilin Police Department received a panic phone call from a man who said, "Hello police, my sister has just been murdered. The killer stabbed her multiple times. Her name is Upping, and she lives in Judy Township. Please send investigators here quickly." About 10 minutes after receiving the report, police arrived at the scene. When they got there, they found villagers gathered around the house where the murder took place, buzzing with speculation. After preliminary investigation at the scene, police discovered that the victim was a woman around 50 years old named Upping. When forensic doctors examined the body, they found multiple stab wounds with blood covering the entire body. The crime scene was in the bedroom with blood staining the nearby bedding, a heartbreaking sight. The time of death was estimated to be around 3 p.m. that same day, as the blood was still wet and the victim's body was still warm. The person who reported the crime was Ying's younger brother Zhang Yut. His house was just over 300 feet from his sister. They were essentially neighbors. According to Yut, that morning while he was working, he received a phone call from Ying's youngest son Wang Chung asking him to check on his mother. Upon receiving his nephew's call, he immediately went to his sister's house. However, Yut never expected to find his sister murdered so brutally. Ping was already 50 years old. He couldn't imagine what kind of conflict could have led someone to act so viciously against her. After thoroughly inspecting the house, police found signs of searching in the closet and drawers. The scene appeared to be a robbery homicide. Additionally, police found a blood-stained shirt and pair of men's sneakers in the living room. According to witness statements, only Upping was home at the time, so whose shirt and shoes were these? Could the killer really have been foolish enough to leave his belongings at the crime scene? When police checked the windows and main entrance of the house, they found no signs of damage or scratches from forced entry. This suggested the killer had entered the house easily, therefore they suspected it was someone familiar with the family. Beyond these initial clues, police continued investigating the scene. Other officers questioned Yut to learn more about the victim's family. Yut explained that his sister's family had 4 members: her husband Wang Ji, age 55, their daughter Wang Jing, age 26, and their youngest son Wang Chung, age 22. They were a happy, harmonious family who often helped those in need. "We've lived near each other for a long time, and Ning never had snf with anyone. If there were any issues, they would have been with her husband Wang Ji. He often competed with other construction contractors. I don't know if he had conflicts with anyone. Upping was just a housewife who took care of her husband and children. How could she have conflicts with anyone?" Zhang added, "I don't understand why Wang Qing called me today to check on his mother. There must be something more to this story." Wang Chung is on his way home now. Questioning him will help clarify things. While team members were examining the crime scene, Xing's 2 children Wang Jing and Wang Chung arrived home. When they saw their mother lying in a pool of blood, they burst into tears and rushed toward her, but investigators held them back to allow forensic doctors to continue examining and collecting evidence from the scene. They could only stand at a distance watching their mother's motionless body in anguish. Another young man had come home with them, Wang Jing's boyfriend Zhang Lin. Though they weren't married, yet Zhang Lin appeared almost as devastated as Ping's own children. After giving them time to process their grief, police questioned them about what had happened that made Wang Qing call his uncle Yut to check on his mother. The sister Wang Jing revealed that around 11 a.m. That day while working at her company, she received a message from a man named Jiang Bing. The message contained just one line: "The game has just begun." Wang Jing found this strange and didn't understand what was happening. She thought he must be joking or had messaged the wrong number. Wang Jing explained that this person had visited her home several times and was supposedly working at the traffic police department, as well as being a business partner of her father Wang Ji. Wang Ji was a construction contractor, and working with him were his niece Schw Ru and her husband Wang Jun. About 20 minutes later, he sent Wang Jing another message saying, "I've kidnapped your father, prepare the ransom money or he will be killed. The amount is 1 million yuan, approximately $235,000, and don't report this to the police." He also sent a bank account number for the transfer. At this point, Wang Jing wasn't sure if this was real or fake, so she tried calling her father, but he didn't answer. Worried about her father, Wang Jing took leave from work to go home and check if Wang Ji was there. When she arrived home, only her mother and brother were there, and they said Wang Ji had gone out that morning to meet with business partners. Wang Jing immediately called back the kidnapper, who then sent her an address for the money drop at Yako Park. Wang Jing and Wang Chung prepared the money and went to the location specified by the kidnapper, but when they tried calling him there, he didn't answer. Then he sent another message saying their cousin Shou Ru and her husband Wang Jun had also been kidnapped and he needed more money. At that moment, she unexpectedly received a message from her boyfriend Jean Lin saying someone had kidnapped her father and was demanding a ransom at Jiao Park. Wang Jing told him they were already there. At this point, the siblings suddenly realized that usually their mother would call constantly if anything was wrong, but strangely today she hadn't called at all. When Wang Jing tried calling their mother and couldn't reach her, he asked Uncle Utai, who lived nearby, to check on her. They never imagined their beloved mother would be murdered in her own home. From this information, police recognized this was a serious and complex case. However, police found it very strange. How would a kidnapper use a SIM card registered in his real name to send ransom demands? He was even someone known to the victim's family and provided his own bank account. Wasn't this essentially announcing his crimes? Secondly, one person couldn't possibly kidnap 3 people simultaneously. This suggested either a criminal group was involved or he had kidnapped them one by one. More importantly, police believed this crime had been premeditated because when the perpetrator killed Shiping, he must have known Wang Jing and Wang Qing weren't home, allowing him to quickly carry out the murder. Could the killer be Jiang Bing? Did he deliberately lure Wang Jing and Wang Qing away before killing Xu Ping? Next, police immediately formed 2 task forces. One continued investigating the crime scene, while the other worked to confirm Jiang Bing's true identity and plan the search for his kidnapping victims based on the bank account name. Investigators discovered Jiang Bing didn't work at the traffic police department as he claimed, but was instead an unemployed drifter living in Zion Hat, who had never married. Police immediately launched a large-scale search in the surrounding area. With the suspect's photo, officers questioned people on the streets, checked guest records at hotels, and traced surveillance camera footage along major routes. They also monitored train stations' common escape routes for criminals. While reviewing surveillance footage near the crime scene, officers spotted Jiang Bing walking on a street about 300 feet from the scene. This increased suspicions that he had killed Shiping. During the search for the suspect on January 4th, officers discovered Jiang Bing was staying at a hotel in the city, and the front desk staff reported he hadn't checked out, yet police quickly organized a team to apprehend him. However, when they broke down the door, investigators were confronted with a cold corpse lying on the bed. Officers initially thought it was the suspect. After identification, the body in the room was confirmed to be Wang Jun, the husband of Shou Ru, Wang Jing's cousin. After conducting an autopsy, forensic experts estimated the time of death to be around 9 a.m. on January 2nd. Before Shiping's murder, the victim had died from a severe blow to the head. So this was the room Jiang Bing had rented using his ID, and inside was Wang Jun's body. It seemed he really had kidnapped 3 people as claimed. With Wang Jun dead, everyone worried about the safety of Shou Ru and Wang Ji. When police questioned the hotel's front desk staff about the guests' movements, they said he had rented the room around 8 a.m. on January 2nd, paid for 10 days in advance, and requested that no one disturb the room, so they hadn't checked on it. This confirmed Jiang Bing was a serial killer operating in the area. The investigation team needed to quickly locate him. However, the bad news wasn't over. On January 5th, police discovered Jiang Bing had used his driver's license to rent another hotel room about 150 feet from the first hotel. When police checked the room, they found Shou Ru's lifeless Body on the floor. After forensic examination, they determined she died from mechanical asphyxiation, with no other wounds, and no signs of sexual assault. Time of death was estimated to be January 2nd, combined with the check-in time. Police deduced that Shoaru was killed about an hour after her husband Wang Jun. By this point, the killer had murdered 3 people in one day. He had chosen different times throughout January. Second to attack his victims, the only person still unaccounted for was Wang Ji. Was he still alive or dead? Of the 3 kidnapped people, the killer had already murdered 2 at this point. Everyone understood Wang Ji's chances of survival were slim. The series of murders in the city caused tremendous panic and fear among residents, who were also outraged by the killer's cruel actions. They promised to immediately report any sightings of the fugitive to police. Zhang Bing's photo was distributed through media channels so citizens could stay alert and report any information about this dangerous suspect. Continuing the investigation, police collected all surveillance camera footage from across the city for review. They also began investigating the victim's social connections more deeply. According to statements from Zhang Lin and Wang Jing, Wang Ji, Wang Jun, and Shuaru had met with Zhang Bing to discuss a highway construction project, and Zhang Bing had been introduced by Wang Jing's boyfriend Zhang Lin. The 2 men frequently communicated and met, so how could Zhang Lin not have known Zhang B's true background? It seemed illogical. Could Zhang Bing have been hired by Wang Ji's highway project competitors to kill them? But what puzzled police was that these people had known each other before. Why would they turn against each other now? Had there been conflicts between them? And why was Zhu Ping, who had no connection to the bidding project, murdered so brutally? To answer these questions, police needed to quickly capture Zhang Bing and bring him to justice. After extensive investigation, police finally spotted Zhang Bing early morning on April 10th. A taxi driver reported taking a passenger matching Zhang Bing's description to Beijing. After reviewing the taxi's camera footage, investigators confirmed it was indeed Zhang Bing. Inner Mongolia police immediately requested assistance from Beijing police to search for the suspect. They also dispatched specialized police forces to Beijing to apprehend this dangerous killer. With Beijing police's support, Inner Mongolia police quickly identified Zhang Bing's hideout. However, when police arrived, he had already fled. They only found items like iodine solution and bandages in the room. Beijing, being China's capital, has a dense population and complex transportation network. If the killer was hiding there, capturing him would be much more difficult. Therefore, in Mongolia, police continued cooperating with Beijing and H police to implement a 3-sided control measure, determined not to let the killer escape. After checking networks on major routes across all regions, they finally found Zhang Bing's trail. He was in a taxi heading northeast. Police suspected Zhang Bing was fleeing toward the border. Consequently, they immediately sent search notices to 3 northeastern provinces and border police to prevent the killer's successful escape. At this time, Zhang Lin, Wang Jing's boyfriend, who had been assisting the investigation, suddenly provided important information. He warned that Zhang Bing was carrying dangerous weapons, so police should be careful. Though not yet married to Wang Jing, Zhang Lin seemed deeply concerned about her family's tragedy. He was very interested in the clues police had gathered and always enthusiastically supported the investigation team. Upon receiving Zhang Lin's information, local police forces prepared themselves with full equipment to handle any unexpected situations this dangerous criminal might create. To avoid alerting the suspect and risking the taxi driver's life, police closely followed the taxi, carrying the suspect, waiting for the right moment to make an arrest at 2 a.m. On April 16th, thanks to surveillance cameras at a highway toll station, police spotted Zhang Bang sleeping in the taxi. This presented a perfect opportunity to arrest him. When the taxi stopped at the toll station, officers quickly subdued and successfully captured the dangerous killer Zhang Bing. What surprised the police was that he showed no resistance and accepted arrest easily. After his arrest, police transported Zhang Bing back to Inner Mongolia for further investigation. As soon as interrogation began, he immediately confessed, claiming he had planned and carried out everything alone with no one else involved. However, police noticed that Zhang Bing's confession seemed to be protecting someone who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Why did he insist so strongly on emphasizing that he planned and executed everything alone to uncover the hidden truth? Police continued their interrogation. When police asked about Wang Ji's whereabouts, Zhang Bing confessed that he had killed him and burned the body with gasoline. When police went to the location where Zhang Bing said he had killed Wang Ji, they found only remaining ashes. When police asked Zhang Bing why he killed these victims, he gave a reason: "I took revenge for my girlfriend." So his motive was revenge for his girlfriend. But who is this girlfriend? What conflict did she have with the victims? He said his girlfriend's name was Callan. They had known each other for 2 years, but had never met in person because Jiang Bing met her online, and she was a Chinese American living in the United States. They only communicated by phone. Jiang Bing claimed that his girlfriend's family had once been wealthy, but had faced sudden misfortunes. Her father was imprisoned, and her mother died from illness in America. Sean had told Jiang Bing that she had lost all her family members, and he was now her only support after taking care of her mother's funeral. She planned to return to Beijing to meet him. Callan had said her parents left her substantial assets in China, but Wang Ji's family and the couple Wang Jun and Sheru were trying to seize these assets for themselves. Worried about her parents' assets being coveted by others, she planned to return to China on January 30th, coinciding with her first meeting with Jiang Bing on January 30th. As planned, Callan was supposed to return to China, but strangely when Jiang Bing called her that day he couldn't reach her, and her social media accounts showed no activity. Callan seemed to have vanished without a trace. At this point, Jiang Bing suspected that Wang family might have kidnapped and killed her to seize her assets, with the initial goal of finding his girlfriend's whereabouts. Since Jiang Bing was already acquainted with the Wang family, around 7 a.m. on January 2nd, 2024, he arranged to meet Wang Ji under the pretense of discussing the upcoming highway project at a field on the outskirts of the city. When Wang Ji arrived, Jiang Bing suddenly attacked and restrained him, demanding information about his girlfriend Sean's whereabouts, but Wang Ji insisted he didn't know who that girl was. In AF of rage, Jiang Bing stabbed him multiple times, then used gasoline to burn his body in this deserted field. After committing the crime, he reasoned that since he would face either the death penalty or life imprisonment anyway, he decided to eliminate everyone who could potentially harm his girlfriend. Later that morning around 8 a.m., he texted Wang Jun to meet at a hotel to discuss the highway project. Wang Jun immediately agreed and quickly arrived at the meeting point. However, Jiang Bing had arrived early with an iron bar, and as soon as Wang Jun entered the room, he struck him hard in the head, killing him instantly. After committing the crime, he paid for several days' stay and posted a do not disturb sign on the main door. Around 9:30 a.m., he used Wang Jun's phone to text his wife, Shu, asking her to meet at another hotel. He then booked a room at a hotel about 150 feet from where he had just killed Wang Jun. When Sheru saw the message from her husband's phone, she went to the hotel without suspicion. As soon as she closed the door, Jiang Bing, who was hiding behind it, strangled her until she stopped breathing and became motionless. Just 5 minutes later, the killer left the room again, paid for several days, and instructed the front desk not to disturb the room he had rented. After leaving the hotel around 11 a.m., Jiang Bing drove to Wang Ji's house. There he found SCHW Ping and her son Wang Chung at home. Realizing it would be difficult to act with 2 people present, he devised a plan to text Wang Jing claiming her father had been kidnapped and provided a fake location where she and her brother could bring the money. When Wang Jing and Wang Chung left the house around 2 p.m., he entered and killed SCHW Ping with multiple fatal stab wounds. Since Jiang Bing had been brought to the house by Wang Ji several times before, SCHW Ping knew him and opened the door without any suspicion. After committing the crime, he searched the house for any valuable assets to take. Seeing his clothes and shoes were covered in blood, making it difficult to leave, he removed his shirt and shoes and left them at the crime scene, which police later collected. Many officers initially thought these items couldn't possibly have been left by the perpetrator. Jiang Bing's purpose in texting Wang Jing was to lure them away from the house and mislead investigators about the kidnapping victims. While police were searching for the other victims, he would have time to escape and search for his girlfriend Sean. He then went to Beijing to search for his girlfriend, hoping to meet Sean one last time before being arrested and tell her he had eliminated everyone who could harm her. But when he reached Beijing, he still couldn't contact his girlfriend or find any trace of her. Feeling despondent, Jiang Bing no longer wanted to run. He decided that if police found him, he would surrender without resistance. Thus the killer was captured in Beijing, and when searched, he had no dangerous weapons on him. Jiang Bing also stated he had never carried weapons. Regarding the motive and criminal process that Jiang Bing confessed to Wang Jing and her brother Wang Chung, still fresh in their grief over losing their parents, were outraged by Jiang Bing's explanation. Wang Jing stated that her family had never known Jiang Bing's girlfriend and didn't know anyone named Sean. Wang Jing believed Jiang Bing's claim that her family was plotting to seize Sean's assets was completely groundless. Police believed that based on Jiang Bing's account of the crimes, he might not be lying about Sean, but Wang Jing and Wang Chung consistently denied this. Was the killer Jiang Bing lying? Or was the Wong family hiding the truth? The investigation team thought that finding the woman named Callan would answer their questions. However, this would be harder than finding a needle in a haystack. Because there were no real photos of Callan. Jiang Bang had only known Callan online, and the account could have been faked. During discussions, some police officers suddenly noticed something unusual about Jian Lin, Wang Jing's boyfriend. They found his behavior very suspicious. First, according to Wang Jing's statement at a party, Jiang Lin had introduced Jiang Bing to the family and said he worked in the traffic department. Did he really not? No, Jiang Bang was using a false identity. Second, during the manhunt, he was unusually interested in the clues collected by the investigation team and the progress of capturing the suspect. Even Wang Jing and Wang Chung, the victim's family members, weren't as concerned as he was. Was Jiang Lin trying to help the investigation team catch the killer, or did he have other motives? Third, during the operation to capture Jiang Bang at the toll station, Jiang Lin reported that Jiang Bang was carrying dangerous weapons, but when checked, Jiang Bing had no weapons, and he said he had never carried any dangerous weapons. Why did Jiang Lin make such a report? What was his basis for claiming Jiang Bing was armed? Fourth, when he saw the crime scene where Wang Jing's mother was murdered, Jiang Lin showed more grief than even her own children. She was his girlfriend's mother, but he cried inconsolably. These situations seemed quite unusual. Therefore, to avoid alerting their target, police quietly investigated Jiang Lin. Meanwhile, they secretly questioned Wang Jing and shared their suspicions with her. Wang Jing said that Jiang Lin worked at the Inner Mongolia Traffic Police Department once. When he invited her family to dinner, he also invited Jian Bing, and that's how they met. The two men frequently communicated and met. How could he not know Jiang Bing's true background? It seemed very illogical. Subsequently, police called the Inner Mongolia Traffic Police Department to verify if Jian Lin worked there. Just as they suspected, the department confirmed they had no employee named Jiang Lin. He had lied. Hearing this, Wang Jing was completely shocked. She couldn't believe the man she had loved all this time was a liar. The pain of losing her parents hadn't yet subsided, and now Wang Jing received another shocking revelation. Police investigated Jiang Lin's recent activities. Reviewing surveillance cameras along various routes, they discovered that on January 1st his car had stopped at a gas station, but the person who stepped out wasn't Jian Lin, it was Jiang Bing. Thus Jiang Bing had used Jiang Lin's car to buy gasoline, and the murders occurred the next day. This suggested Jiang Lin likely knew about the entire case. Recognizing Jiang Lin's suspicious behavior, police brought him in for questioning. When faced with police questions, he initially gave evasive answers to avoid the issues. However, Wang Jing was present and exposed his lie about working at the traffic department. Officers also presented evidence from surveillance cameras. At this point, Jiang Lin admitted he knew about the case. He claimed that on the morning of January 2nd, he had gone to meet Jiang Bing to discuss some work when he accidentally discovered Jiang Bing threatening Wang Ji. When Jiang Lin arrived, Jiang Bing allegedly threatened him, saying if he revealed any information to police, he would meet the same fate as Wang Ji. Jiang Lin claimed he was too afraid of Jiang Bing's potential attack to report to police immediately. Police then asked, if you knew Wang Ji had been killed by Jiang Bing, why did you text Wang Jing and Wang Qing to go to Jiako Park to look for him? Police believed his explanations were contradictory and completely untrue. Under continuous police interrogation pressure, Jiang Lin finally confessed. He revealed that the entire case was a conspiracy between the two of them. However, he had wanted Jiang Bang to take all the blame. Upon learning this truth, Wang Jing couldn't believe it. He had deceived her about his job, and now she learned he was involved in the plot to murder her entire family. Her sorrowful eyes turned to looks of rage toward the man sitting before her. According to Jiang Lin's confession, his relationship with Wang Jing had been planned from the start. It was an elaborate scam without any genuine feelings. Jiang Lin revealed that he initially knew Wang Ji was in the construction business. His goal in pursuing Wang Jing was to gain her family's trust and then defraud them of their assets. First, Jiang Lin had lied about working at the traffic department and having an extensive network of connections. He promised he could help Wang Ji, Wang Jun, and Shu in major projects to convince Wang Jing's family that his promises weren't empty words. Jiang Lin reached out to his friend Jiang Bing to pose as a high-ranking official. He arranged several dinner meetings between Jiang Bing and Wang Jing's family. Seeing the plan progressing well, Jiang Lin invented a fictitious highway project. He claimed that in the most recent meeting there was information about a new highway project being launched with potential profits reaching 50 million yuan, about $1.7 million. Jiang Lin said if Wang Jing's family agreed to bid, he could help them secure the project. Initially, Wang Ji didn't believe Jiang Lin could introduce such a large project, but because Wang Jing and Jiang Lin were preparing to get married, he didn't question it much and said that For such a large project, he would naturally want to participate. When Jiang Lin saw Wang Ji's interest in participating in this highway project, he said Wang Ji first needed to give him 1 million yuan, about $235,000, to establish relationships with the bosses and ensure the bidding would go smoothly. Wang Ji felt that providing 1 million yuan, about $235,000, without any guarantees was too risky. Meanwhile, his niece Schw Ru and her husband Wang Jun, who were also in construction, heard about this major project and knew about Jiang Lin's connections, so they were eager to participate. As a result, Wang Ji, Wang Jun, and Shu directly gave Jiang Lin 1.7 million yuan, about $400,000, as preparation fees for the project's initial phase. However, after receiving the money, Jiang Lin spent it extravagantly on a lavish lifestyle. He was actually unemployed, and his only real talent was deceiving others. He had never been involved in any real projects. However, the $400,000 was quickly spent while the project showed no signs of progress. This made Wang Ji increasingly anxious, and he began asking about the project's status. At this point, Jiang Lin felt he was about to be exposed. If this deception was discovered, he would certainly face many years in prison. Therefore, a crazy idea formed in his mind. Jiang Lin wanted to eliminate everyone who knew about this deception, so he could keep the entire $400,000. However, he didn't want to bear the guilt of these crimes, so he manipulated Jiang Bing to be his puppet and take all the blame. Actually, Jiang Bing's girlfriend, Callan, was completely fabricated by Jiang Lin. In reality, over 2 years ago, Jiang Lin and Jiang Bang had been colleagues. During his free time, Jiang Lin created a WeChat account pretending to be a woman to flirt with Jiang Bing. Knowing he was shy around women, but very loyal, he named this fictional woman Callan. Whenever Jiang Lin had free time, he would use the Callan WeChat account to chat with Jiang Bing. Gradually, through sweet words and promises, Jiang Bing became completely lost in this deception and believed it was all real. To further eliminate Jiang Bing's doubts about Callan, Jiang Lin repeatedly asked a woman to pose as Callan during voice calls with Jiang Bing. For over 2 years, Jiang Bing had blindly trusted in this online girlfriend he had never met. Later, Jiang Lin used the Shan WeChat account to swindle large sums of money from Jiang Bing through various excuses. Jiang Lin kept the WeChat account active, and whenever he needed money, he would have the same female accomplice called Jiang Bing to ask for loans in his scheme to defraud Wang Jing's family. He also had Jiang Bing play the role of a successful official. When the scheme to defraud Wang Jing's family was about to be exposed, Jiang Lin thought of Jiang Bing again. He planned to turn Jiang Bing into his weapon, helping him eliminate all potential threats. To draw Jiang Bing into the conspiracy, Jiang Lin used the WeChat account to fabricate a new story. The chat message read, "My dear Jiang Bing, my family is currently facing an unexpected crisis. My father has been imprisoned and my mother just died from illness in America. I've now lost all my family members and you're my only support. After I finish my mother's funeral arrangements, I'll return to Beijing to meet you. Currently, my parents left me some assets in China, but Wang Jing's family and the couple Wang Jun and Schw Ru want to seize these assets. For Els worried about my family's accounts being targeted by many people. I'll return to China on January 30th to meet you and protect my parents' assets, then we can live together." But on January 30th, Jiang Lin made the Seal and WeChat account unreachable, leading Jiang Bing to suspect his girlfriend had met with trouble. Upon returning to China, Jiang Bing then began to suspect that the Wang family might have kidnapped and killed her to seize her assets. Jiang Lin then added more details to the story, and Jiang Bing became completely convinced that Wang Ji's family had kidnapped his girlfriend to avenge his girlfriend. And with Jiang Lin's assistance, the killer systematically targeted each victim according to Jiang Lin's instructions. As for the police's question about why he reported Jiang Bang was carrying dangerous weapons during the manhunt, Jiang Lin said he hoped there would be a confrontation where police would eliminate Jiang Bing. That way no one would know he was behind everything. But the plan he thought was perfect only temporarily challenged the investigation team and couldn't fool the veteran detectives. Finally, the series of murders committed by Jiang Bang was revealed to have been orchestrated by Jiang Lin. However, even when the case was announced as solved and police told Jiang Bing the truth, he couldn't believe it. The girlfriend he had dated for 2 years was actually just a fictional account created by Jiang Lin. In the trial in Inner Mongolia, Jiang Bing, who had murdered 4 people, was sentenced to death. Although Jiang Lin didn't directly commit the murders, he was the mastermind behind everything. He was deemed a danger to society and was also sentenced to death. This horrific case in Shilin Hot City has left many profound lessons for society. Story 3. We will explore a case involving a beautiful Mongolian model with striking looks. However, her life became entangled in a shocking crime that reverberated across Malaysia and the world. The victim in this case was Shir bin al-Tana, born in 1978 in Mongolia. She came from an intellectual family. Her father was a professor at the National University of Mongolia. Due to her parents' work, Alania grew up in Russia. Besides her beauty, she was highly educated and fluent in several languages, including Mongolian, Russian, Chinese, English, and a bit of French. At 18, Alania married Madai, the lead singer of Mongolia's famous band Black Moss, and they had a child together. The couple frequently appeared in magazines and interviews, garnering public attention. Their family of three was seen as a model of perfection. Alano's married life seemed carefree, but she dreamed of becoming a model and was unwilling to stay at home as a housewife. This ambition led to frequent arguments with her husband. Ultimately, their marriage lasted only 2 short years, ending when she was 20 years old, perhaps because she was still young and yearning for love. Alania remarried the same year. She divorced, this time to a designer. Unfortunately, this marriage also lasted only 2 years. Despite 2 failed marriages, Altanta didn't succumb to despair. Instead, she decided to set aside her personal life to focus on her dreams. She moved to Paris to attend a professional modeling school where she learned French and honed her skills in etiquette and presentation, equipping herself with both inner and outer beauty for her modeling career. Through hard work, she gradually achieved her dream and became a successful model. In addition to modeling, Altana was also a businesswoman. Her business involved exporting textiles from China to other countries, which meant she often lived and traveled between Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. To her friends, she led a luxurious lifestyle, frequently visiting high-end locations and mingling with the elite. However, at the peak of her career, Alania became pregnant again. Tragically, her second child was born with neurological paralysis and required frequent medical care. To this day, the identity of the child's father remains unknown. Rumors suggest he was a wealthy Mongolian businessman, but no one knows for sure. Despite this, having a second child with severe health challenges didn't seem to affect Altana's stunning appearance. She continued to thrive in elite circles and social events. With her striking looks and ability to speak 4 languages fluently, she could effortlessly blend into any social setting. Elena's life took a significant turn at age 26 when she met a man in Hong Kong in 2004 during an international exhibition in Hong Kong. Her regal and elegant appearance caught many eyes at the event. One of the people captivated by her was 44-year-old Abdul Razak. At the time, Abdul Razak was not an ordinary man. He was a defense ministry advisor in Malaysia and the director of the Strategic Research Center. More importantly, Razak was the right-hand man of Deputy Prime Minister Nij Razak. Razak's political power was seconded only to Naib's and far above that of many others. It was widely believed that in just a few years, as Ani ascended to the role of Prime Minister, Razak's political career would flourish further. However, he likely never imagined that his encounter with Alania would become a ticking time bomb for both his career and the Jebs. At the Hong Kong exhibition, Razak was immediately captivated by Alania, and she in turn was drawn to his confidence and charisma. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and Razak saw in her not only beauty, but also intellect. As mentioned earlier, Alania was fluent in 4 languages and had extensive experience in international business, making her an extraordinary talent. In Razak's eyes, he invited Alania to work as his translator, though this title was merely a pretext to spend time with her. Razak treated Alania exceptionally while he took her on trips to Europe, frequently bought her jewelry, and generously supported her financially. When she faced difficulties, his gestures deeply moved her. After more than a year of knowing each other, in 2005, Alania, who had endured 2 failed marriages, regained her faith in love. She even expressed the desire to have a child with Razak and to become his official wife. Despite knowing that Razak was already married, however, she also knew that as a Muslim under Malaysian law, Razak could have up to 4 legal wives. When Alania brought up this idea, Razak was not enthusiastic. His political career was thriving, and with Nib to become prime minister, marrying another woman at this time could jeopardize his prospects. To avoid complications, Razak declined the idea outright. Yet, being a man who enjoyed romance, he didn't completely cut ties with Alania, as he still wanted her to bear his child. Razak devised a solution. He arranged for a lawyer friend to marry Altanta as a legal formality, ensuring she had a legitimate husband on paper, while he and Alania continued their secret relationship. When Alania discovered Razak's plan and realized he only saw her as a mistress, she decided to confront him in October 2005 while in Mongolia. Altano resolved to travel to Malaysia to have a clear discussion with Rozak accompanying her on this trip. Was her cousin? Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned upon her arrival in Malaysia. Rozak seemed unwilling to meet her for days. Alania tried to contact Rozak, but failed with her strong-willed personality. She refused to give up. Into the following days, she went directly to Rozak's house, shouting in front of his gate. Despite her persistence, Rozak continued to avoid her, leaving her to scream outside. At this stage, the situation was still just a typical affair involving a married man and his mistress. However, the story soon took a dramatic turn, becoming one of the most infamous criminal cases on the evening of October 19, 2006, around 7:00 p.m. Altana and her cousin were resting in their hotel room when Alania suddenly received a phone call and rushed out. Her cousin, noticing her urgency, asked what was happening. Alania replied that her husband had sent someone to pick her up and take her to his villa in Damanara Heights. After finalizing their plan, they went to Ila's house to retrieve the explosives. Cyril and Ila claimed that once everything was prepared, Sir's ex-girlfriend left the scene. The two men then transported Alania to the Shah Alam Forest Reserve near Kuala Lumpur. Upon arrival, Ila produced an M5 firearm equipped with a silencer and handed it to Cyril, ordering him to shoot the victim. Terrified upon hearing this, Alania began to struggle and panicked. The two men restrained her and forcibly removed her jewelry. Cyril and Ila testified that Alania, facing two men, had no way to resist. Throughout the ordeal, she begged them not to kill her, pleading that she was pregnant with Rozak's child and hoping this would spare her. However, Ila and Cyril were unmoved by her pleas, bound by orders from their superiors. They felt they had to complete their mission according to their confession. After the gunshot, Ila immediately stripped Alania of her clothing, and Cyril placed all her garments into a black trash bag. They used another black bag to cover her head, aiming to prevent blood from spilling around the area. Ila then grabbed her legs while Cyril held her arms, and together they carried her deeper into the forest. Once they found a suitable spot, Ila brought out explosives and divided them into two portions. Cyril placed one portion at Elena's head while Ila positioned the other portions at her abdomen and feet. They connected the charges with detonator cords, retreated to a safe distance, and triggered the explosion. This was the sequence of events described by Ila and Cyril. However, they emphasized that they did not know the woman personally and were merely executing orders from their superior. Naturally, the critical question became who issued these ERS. Was it Rozak, or perhaps the other man in the photograph Alania had shown her cousin Deputy Prime Minister Nib, or was it someone else entirely? The horrifying nature of this case, coupled with its implications for relations between Mongolia and Malaysia, captured the attention of French investigative journalist Arnaud Deas, a Southeast Asia correspondent known for uncovering sensitive stories. Arnaud had reported on the A's massacre, Myanmar's military regime, and the plight of the Inia people. As is often the case with investigative journalism, exposing the truth came with significant risks. In 2019, Arnaud mysteriously fell from a train in Thailand, and whether his death was linked to another assassination remains unknown. Returning to Arnaud's investigation of this case, he uncovered layers of complexity far beyond initial suspicions. According to his findings, Alania and Rozak had traveled to Europe together in 2005. This trip, however, was not merely a romantic getaway. Arnaud suspected that one of their destinations was France, not for luxury shopping or sightseeing at the Eiffel Tower, but to discuss the procurement of military submarines. Alania, fluent in 4 languages, served as Rozak's interpreter during negotiations with arms dealers. This deal involved Rozak acting on behalf of then Deputy Prime Minister Ni to secure military submarines. While it is normal for a Deputy Prime Minister to arrange military equipment purchases, this transaction was far from straightforward. Rozak and Nib allegedly planned to profit from the deal, earning a commission of up to 500 million euros from the French arms dealer. A significant portion of this money was reportedly funneled into a Hong Kong registered company owned by Rozak and his father. Arnaud's investigation revealed that Alania, upon learning of this deal, demanded a share of the commission. When Rozak refused, Alania began to harass him incessantly. Unable to endure her relentless pressure, Rozak reportedly sought help from another close associate of Nab's, the deputy director of the political division, to handle the situation. As a result, Altano was labeled a spy, abducted on October 19th, and ultimately murdered in the forest. According to journalist Arnaud's analysis, the entire case can be simplified as follows. Rozak and Ni were involved in corruption, and Alania demanded a share of the profits. When her demands were denied, she resorted to blackmail. However, this backfired, ultimately costing her life. The information gathered by Malaysian police closely aligned with Arno's findings. Authorities believed Razak was the mastermind who ordered S and Ila to carry out the murder. As a result, Razak was arrested and charged with abetting murder. At this point, the case already seemed highly complex, but it didn't end there. 7 months after Alano's remains were discovered, the trial officially began. Special Operation Officers S and Ila were charged with murder. In court, they repeated the same testimony they had given to the police, admitting to the killing. Razak, on the other hand, was charged with incitement to murder, but he vehemently denied the accusations. He maintained his earlier statement, claiming that he was a victim of harassment by Alania and had no involvement in her death during the trial. The case captivated all of Malaysia, sparking widespread speculation and rumors about the truth. One such rumor alleged that Razak had introduced Alania to Nib as a mistress to curry favor with his superior. The photograph of the three dining together in Paris, which Alano's cousin mentioned, was often cited as evidence of this claim. However, others argued that the photo circulating online was fake and that the real photo had never been made public. Razak never commented on these rumors. Another central figure caught in the controversy was Deputy Prime Minister and he adamantly denied ever knowing Alania. By 2008, the trial was still ongoing. That year was also significant for Malaysia, as it marked the general election. Despite the cloud of the Mongolian woman's murder case, Nij ran for office. Though the case affected his reputation, he successfully transitioned from Deputy Prime Minister to Prime Minister. However, just 3 months after Nib assumed office, a bombshell declaration surfaced online alleging that the new Prime Minister had known Alania and had an intimate relationship with her. This declaration was made by a former police officer named Bala. After leaving law enforcement, Bala became a private investigator. He stated that Razak had hired him as a personal bodyguard before the murder occurred. Razak allegedly sought Bala's services because he was being relentlessly harassed by a Mongolian woman named Alania, and Bala's job was to protect Razak and keep Alania away. In his declaration, Bala claimed that Razak didn't meet Alania in Hong Kong, but rather at a Diamond Yexi in Singapore. Moreover, Razak was introduced to Alania by Ni himself. Bala further stated that Nij had spoken to Razak about his relationship with the Mongolian woman, mentioning her special skills. Subsequently, the three of them traveled to Paris for dinner, where the now infamous photograph of them was taken. According to Bala's statement, Najib had once told Razak that he hoped Razak could provide financial support to the woman. Following this, Razak frequently received calls from Alania demanding money. At first, Razak agreed to her requests, even purchasing a house for her in Mongolia. However, over time, he grew tired of supporting her, realizing she was a con artist and had even deceived Nabe. Later, because of the submarine deal, Razak decided to stop giving her money. When Alania didn't receive the funds she demanded, she often showed up at Razak's house shouting and causing a scene. Bala, Razak's bodyguard, stated that he had personally intervened to stop her on one occasion. At the time, Alania didn't continue her confrontation, but left a note for Razak instead. Bala mentioned that during his interaction with Alania, he found her to be someone he could reason with. Through their conversation, he learned that Razak had promised to pay her $500,000 as a commission from the submarine transaction. In Bala's declaration, he also mentioned asking Alania why she was in such urgent need of money. She explained that her brother had mortgaged the house Razak had bought for her, and she wanted to reclaim it on the day of Alano's disappearance. Bala stated that he had seen her. Razak had called him, instructing him to detain Alania until his people arrived. Shortly afterward, a red car appeared and Alania was forcibly taken into the vehicle. After Alano's disappearance, Bala was arrested by the police and detained for 7 days. While in custody, Bala immediately sought Razak's help. Razak in turn reached out to his superior, then Deputy Prime Minister Nij, for assistance. According to Bala, Nij replied to Razak via text stating, "I met with the Chief of Police this morning. The issue will be resolved. Stay calm." After 7 days in detention, Bala was told he could leave after signing a statement. However, upon reviewing the document, he noticed that all mentions of Deputy Prime Minister Nib had been removed. On the same evening that Bala made his declaration public, Prime Minister Najib held a press conference, once again denying any acquaintance with Al Tanta. The very next day, something unexpected occurred. Bala issued a second declaration. In this new statement, he completely retracted his earlier claims, stating that the contents of the first declaration were entirely false. Shortly afterward, Bala and his entire family disappeared from Malaysia. His home was later found to have been broken into, and no one could contact him again. Naturally,